Okay, so hey, good afternoon. It's Friday afternoon. It's sunny outside. I'm sitting here on the patio. I needed to get out because I need to be out in the nature. I've been feeling totally out of sorts, and I can't really put my finger on it. Like, why am I feeling so out of sorts? And I'm hearing all around that people are feeling the exact same thing. They're feeling out of sorts. Why is that? Well, this morning I had a meeting and I met Pastor Todd. And Pastor Todd is out in Delavan. He's got counseling background, chaplaincy background. As a matter of fact, he's been with the Air Force as a chaplain for 14 years. So Todd, welcome. This is great to have you. Boy, Todd, why am I feeling out of sorts? What's going on? You told me earlier something that I was like, oh, I bet he's right. so,
Yes.
so what's going on here?
Well, good afternoon. Good to meet you. Good chatting in the meeting this morning. Yeah, it's interesting to me knowing some things, when you know something but nobody else seems to know it or understand it. And that's kind of what's going on. I see a lot of times with what's happening around the pandemic, this COVID thing,
Yeah.
is grief. Because there is a lot of loss. And it's funny because when I say the word grief, people think, well, wait a minute. I don't know anybody that's died. There's I'm feeling good. What are you talking about? Well, there are over 40 some different types of losses that result in grief. And grief, when I talk about it, is the positive and negative conflicting emotions around any one of those losses. And that's what gets us feeling out of sorts a lot of times.
All right. So what's happening? I mean, I'm enjoying my iced coffee right here. It's a beautiful day. I feel good, but every once in a while, I'm realizing, I'm a little, short with other people, or there's something just not right. And you're telling me that it's because these negative and positive emotions are duking it out inside of me.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it, and which is again how we describe or define grief. It's the happy, I'm healthy, happy the sun's out today, and yet frustrated and sad that I've been or had a lot of freedoms taken away recently. Now here in Wisconsin, our freedoms were suddenly just like thrown back at us, but
Magically appeared.
but even in that, people do not think about or realize the ramifications of that and how that can be causing frustration or that positive negative confliction, because the virus is still there.
Yeah.
We're not beyond anything other than the Supreme Court decided here in Wisconsin the governor overstepped.
Right. Okay. So regardless of that, then, on the legitimacy or not legitimacy, and people are going to have their own opinion.
Exactly.
And this is where I think we just have to be very careful and
Yeah.
not be too on one way or the other. Just
Exactly.
the coordinated, Christian charity and Christian grace. But
Right.
here's the question, Todd. What have people tried in these kinds of situations? What paths do we normally go down?
Right. And so a lot of times, I guess we've all been conditioned to turn to things like, well, don't feel bad. You're healthy. You shouldn't feel bad. You don't know anybody who's died. So,
Right.
but I equate that to even like going back to my dealing with my grandfather's death when I was 5 or 6, and I heard somebody say, well, don't feel bad. He lived a long, good life. What the reality is, I do feel bad because I'm going to miss him.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. We turn to things like, well, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'll just be strong and everything will be fine. But there's that little nagging idea there that maybe I won't be fine.
Sure.
People say, things like, well, it'll just take time and everything will get back to normal. But I think if we're really honest with ourselves, we know there's going to be a new normal, not going back to the old quote unquote normal.
I do hear that a lot. Like, oh, well, we just need to wait it out and we'll back to normal. I can't wait until we we get together again. I can't wait until, I can go to a restaurant again. So, all right. So that's, people try that. Okay. What else?
Yeah, and so then when those things don't work, we start turning to what I call coping mechanisms. it was interesting, even in the beginning of this, how suddenly on Facebook you saw people baking all kinds of comfort foods, or and so we were starting to emotionally eat. Well, that's effective in the short term, but in the long term, that's not a solution. That's not going to help me move beyond my grief. We turn to things like alcohol, drugs. The list just goes on and on. We call them short-term energy releasing behaviors.
Oh gosh, that sounds, too technical for me, but
That
yeah.
sounds too technical, but what we turn to is those comfort things
Uh-huh.
that again, they're effective in the short term, but they're not a long-term solution.
Yeah, it's almost like our negative patterns, or the things that our ugly self sort of comes back almost.
Yeah, potentially, or even, there are good things like exercise and running can
Oh,
be
sure.
ways of release, not a bad one, but
Yeah.
it's interesting when I did my training on this, the individual who helped train us, I asked him, I said, hey, I like eating, I like running, I like reading. Those aren't bad things.
Hmm.
How do I know when I'm turning to those in an unhealthy way? And he said, if you're doing it to the detriment of the important relationships in your family.
Oh wow, that is good. That is really good,
So
because even the good things could impact negatively the relationships.
yeah,
Oh wow,
exactly.
that's really good. Anything else? What else have people tried?
It, again, it's things like, again, I don't know how to explain it other than just those coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
We turn to things too, like be strong.
But maybe, hey, I'm you're better than others.
Yeah,
Right? You're doing good. Look at others that are, look at poor people in, you name your poor place.
exactly. And again, that's the kind of the idea or the concept of, well, you shouldn't feel bad. And it's
Oh, I
interesting.
see.
It's interesting in that I talk about it this way too. We have moved in our society from the right to pursue happiness to we should be happy all the time.
Oh wow. Now
And
tell
that's
me more
not
about that.
and that's not healthy. That's not healthy because we are more than just a feeling of happiness. We have a wide range of emotions. And so even in the midst of loss, in the midst of grieving, and we talk about how an individual, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry and upset. Just don't stay there. Express that and then move on beyond it.
Wow, I can totally see that, because it's almost like I'm feeling bad and I know that I have maybe reasons for it, but man, I really want to get back to that happy.
Right.
It's almost like a drug. It's almost like my brain, gets into this. I want the happy all the time. Give me the happy. I don't want to be bored. I don't want to be. I take me backward, and I'll do whatever it takes to get back to the happy.
Right. And I like the C.S. Lewis quote. I don't know if I'll get it exact, but he said, if happiness was the be all end all of everything, a good bottle of port would be good enough. But but
Sure, I can see that.
but
Sure.
but if we're really honest with ourselves, there's more to life than just being happy all the time.
Sure.
And again, if I think about it, even in my relationship and my walk with God, where do I find the most clearest picture of him and his care and his concern for me is in the midst of pain and suffering, when I know he's walking with me side by side in the midst of it. And so I don't want to rush through the pain. I don't want to move beyond it too quickly. I want to learn the lessons he's trying to teach me and delve deeper into that. And again, I'm just like everybody else. I don't like pain. I don't seek it out, but I can celebrate it and seek to find out what he's teaching me about him or himself and what he's teaching me about myself.
Okay. Now that's powerful, because now we're moving. Uh, some of these things that we've talked about really don't work.
Right.
No matter, now they may have a temporary relief. They may have a passing feeling that, wow, I'm better now, but they they don't last. They're not sustainable. So you started a little bit and help us understand what is sustainable and what might be some of the things that, where do we start? And practically speaking, give us some practical things where we can start. Someone like me says, you know what, I'm feeling out of sorts. What do I do about it? Where do I start?
Well, so the first thing is to recognize, to give yourself permission to feel out of sorts, and then to step back and say, okay, why am I feeling out of sorts? Is it because I've had an experienced loss? And then back up and think through. And I would encourage people to take a moment, just take some time, some quiet time, and start out with, I was born in whatever year you were born in. Here's today's date. Draw a little timeline, and then just start and think about the losses that have been throughout your life. When I did that when I was 40, I went, oh my gosh, I've had a lot of loss in 40 years. Not big losses, but a lot of loss, and that's adding up, and it's taken a toll on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that those losses are all isolated and compartmentalized. But what I call the heart account, if you look at it kind of like from a banking perspective, the heart bank account took in a lot of deposits around those losses. And my grandfather's death when I was 5 or 6, $100 deposit. I was very young. We didn't have a long relationship. My dad's death when I was 21, thousands of dollars deposit, but they're all in the same heart account gathering interest. And I like to say the wounds on our hearts drive us.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I have a loss, I experience a little wound on my heart, and they start to drive me. And so then what I do is, after I recognize and acknowledge I've had a lot of loss in my life already, I pick one of those losses out and I say, what's the story in the relationship around this loss? Now, again, it's a little easier when we're talking, I've had somebody die. So for instance, my father, I could take a look at my relationship with my father and the positives and the negatives of that relationship. And I would track things like things that I needed to apologize for, things that I needed to forgive my father for, some significant emotions around those that I might need to speak out loud that didn't get communicated when he was alive, and then just fond memories. Little harder with something like COVID-19. I've experienced loss because the government has kind of forced some loss on me, let's say. But there's some things there that I need to forgive and wrestle with and let go of. And so for me, when I think about this loss and moving beyond it and looking at the relationship, the apology and forgiveness piece is the big one. That's really the key to it. And so how to think through, how can I release this? For me, it's how do I give it over to God?
Okay.
And how do I hand it over to him and apply the forgiveness that comes to me through Jesus to this situation? And so that I can release it. Now, the danger is always we want to buy it back.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like
there's a humility. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's almost like there's a humility that you enter this situation with, because you enter with humility, and then you enter with a level of trust.
Yeah.
And you say, look, I'm entering this with humility because I'm realizing all the stuff that is beyond me, and I'm going to release that. And in releasing, there's an element of trust that happens. Am I hearing you correct?
Yeah, and that's, if we think about faith, what is faith? But in large part, trusting God in the midst of a loss, in the midst of a trial, in the midst of life in general. And then it's okay, I'm going to release this, so I'm trusting you to take it. Here you go.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind your analogy in this bank account, it accumulates grief, if I heard you correct. Am I understanding that correctly?
Accumulates interest. Yeah.
So the grief is the interest, correct?
Yeah.
So the grief, and unlike a good bank account that has lots and lots of money in it,
right,
this bank account is actually a bad one. You don't want that. You don't want a lot of grief in there. You don't want the bank account to grow. So you have to release it, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I love that idea, because there's an element here of gratitude, because if I heard you correctly, in the midst of all this, you have encourage us to start thinking about the gratitude of those moments, even those lost moments. And there's an element of gratitude and generosity in the same time, because as we are thankful and we are appreciative and have this grateful heart, it helps us become generous towards others. Perhaps the generosity comes in the form of a little bit more patience,
Yeah.
a little bit more awareness that we are out of sorts.
Yeah.
And am I getting to the right what you are encouraging us to do?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Another way that I think about an illustration that we use. Let's say you and your family are going out on a picnic. You've
Mm-hmm.
planned this picnic for the last week and a half, and you're going to go out, and it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And tomorrow morning you wake up, you're excited to go out and go on this picnic, and it's pouring rain. It is
Oh.
cats and dogs. It is going to be raining all day long.
Oh.
The question then is to you is and you develop a bad attitude about this, right? You're out of sorts about this.
Oh
The
gosh.
question is, did the picnic get ruined by the rain, or did the picnic or our day get ruined by our attitude? Now, in some respects, it's both, right? I want to acknowledge it's both.
Yeah.
But the rain is beyond our control.
Yeah.
Our attitude is within our control, and we can come up with ways to refocus, re-engage. Now we suddenly have an opportunity. We're not going to go on a picnic, but we have a free day to do whatever we want to do. Let's be thankful for that, and let's move on. And that moves us from that victim mindset to a resilient mindset. Is another way to say it.
I love it. That is so powerful. Resilience is such a powerful concept, and that quick pivot into, well, Lord, you've given me this. What do I do now with it?
Exactly.
And I love the analogy of the picnic. Now, speaking of picnics and food, what role does good food, nutritious food, nutrition and rest and rhythm of life, what role does that play in our out of sorts feeling?
Right, and that's another good point. It's all intertwined. The way we talk about it in the Air Force is we talk about comprehensive fitness.
Ah, okay.
And so comprehensive fitness, there's 4 pillars to it. It's exercise would be one, so it's the physical,
Yeah.
it's the social, it's the emotional, and it's the spiritual.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay, and so if you are getting a lot of rest, you're eating right, you're drinking lots of water, or a little iced coffee.
A little iced coffee, not my 5th cup, right?
I had my French press earlier, so I like coffee too.
I love it.
But if you are doing that well, you're exercising, that just, there's a lot of physiological results in the body that are beneficial from that, right? If you're engaging with people in a social way, we're not, and this is probably part of the frustration around the safe at home issues going on throughout the country. We're not meant to live in isolation. We're meant to live in community. I think that's a biblical concept as well. The idea of the body.
Right.
So we need that social aspect. I grew up in a neighborhood where the neighbors gathered on our deck at night to watch the softball games across the field. And because we were on the left field foul pole line, we were right there. And I tell people that story of how the neighbors gathered and hung out at night and watched softball and just were together.
Right.
And people look at me like that's the strangest concept ever. But that's the way we were designed and to experience life. We shouldn't be isolated.
Yeah.
So we need that social aspect. Mental health. I think about it, if I'm going to think about that mental health piece from a biblical perspective, it's take my thoughts captive.
Absolutely.
And then the spiritual, again, how am I feeding my spirit? Air Force looks at it as a what's my core values, what's my worldview kind of thing. But again, from a faith perspective, how am I growing in my faith? So if we're balancing all 4 of those, we're going to do well.
Brilliant.
They all interlocked and are intertwined.
Yeah, they do, don't they? I mean, if I know for myself that if I don't get a good night's rest next day, boy, watch out. Or if I don't have good food or nutritious food, I eat some junk food, I get heartburn. I get all sorts of things
Right.
out there. But wow, Todd, it's been just amazing just to connect and, and just learn together and share together. And thank you for joining us through this video. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, by all means. Now, Todd, you have a channel as well, correct, on YouTube, right? Tell the folks where that is.
So you would put me on the spot like that.
Oh, it's okay. You know what?
No, just Google Faith Baptist Church, Delavan, Wisconsin. You'll get to us.
Brilliant. And you know what, Todd? If you send me the links to all that, we'll put those in the video notes and into the comments, just so that people have that access. And if you have questions, by all means, hit me with it. I'm Pastor Florin with Agape and Pastor Todd. That would be fantastic work. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Put some comments. Engage. Invite your friends to participate. And the whole idea is, let's be in this together. We need that social interaction. We need that camaraderie, and hit that bell. That I call it the church bell. If you hit that church bell, you'll be notified of new content. But I'm hoping that this was helpful to you, and if it was, share with somebody that you love, just so that they can start thinking and begin to get closer and closer to our Lord Jesus. And may you all be blessed. Todd, thanks for your time. The Lord bless your friend. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.